All right, thank you for coming, everyone. I'm here with four victims of Dr. Tyndall and USC. I'm attorney Gloria Allred. I'll be making a statement. Then the four victims will be making a statement. And then my exceptional co-counsel, John Carpenter, will be making a statement. John and I will be happy to answer questions. When we conclude, simply type in your question and then we will read the questions and answer them at the end. On May 22nd, 2018, we filed our first lawsuit against USC and Dr. George Tyndall because of the very serious allegations made by female students that for many years, USC knew of inappropriate conduct by him, but failed to take appropriate measures to protect innocent students who were under his care. In fact, when I held a press conference to announce the filing of our first lawsuit, I stated that we had a declaration from a quote, Jane Doe, end quote, that she had notified USC in 1991 of Dr. Tyndall's inappropriate conduct. My firm, Allred, Maroko, and Goldberg, and our co-counsel, Carpenter, Zuckerman, and Rowley, represent 72 of those female victims. When we filed our complaint, I promised that, quote, we will not stop until the truth is known and we win justice for the USC women whose rights were violated, end quote. That day has come. Today, we announce an historic settlement, $842,400,000, which we believe to be the highest single sexual abuse and sex harassment settlement against a university in civil litigation history. This is a global settlement for all 702 women whom Dr. Tyndall sexually abused at USC and who decided to opt out of the federal class action settlement against USC. Our 72 clients are victims no more. We congratulate our clients for deciding to opt out of the federal class action settlement approved more than 2 years ago, and instead making the decision to continue to litigate the case against USC with us. The survivors in the federal class action settlement who endured the most severe form of sexual abuse will receive, on average, $96,000. On the other hand, in this global settlement, which the court approved this afternoon, the survivors who declined to accept the class action settlement and continued to litigate will receive an average of $1.2 million. Our clients obviously made the right choice. Our clients and the other survivors of Dr. Tyndall's morally despicable and wrongful conduct have persevered. They have persevered in order to hold USC accountable for not protecting them and for not having taken action against Dr. Tyndall decades ago when the young women first began to complain about him. Today, our clients and other victims received a long overdue, quote, apology, end quote, I'm calling it an apology, from Rick Caruso, chair of the USC Board of Trustees. He sent a letter to the USC community this afternoon in which he stated on behalf of the Board of Trustees, end quote, no settlement could ever adequately address the deep pain and sense of personal violation that these innocent victims must have experienced. The behavior that was discovered shocks the conscience of the university to its core. It compromises the very foundation of honor and integrity upon which this institution was built and betrays the trust that our students have long expected from us. Our institution fell short by not doing everything that it could to protect those who matter to us most, our students. For years, the victims of George Tyndall suffered in silence. I am sorry for the pain this caused the very people we were obligated to protect, end quote. We agree with Rick Caruso's sentiment, and we appreciate USC's acknowledgement of the pain and personal violation that our clients have suffered. We congratulate our 72 clients for staying strong. They endured further litigation and the risk that they might have to testify at trial. They made many sacrifices in order to continue with this case, and they trusted us to continue to fight for them and to obtain the best possible result for them. Today, justice has prevailed because of their courage and the exceptional legal work and advocacy of all of the lawyers in this case. Today's settlement is a legal reckoning and one major step forward in vindicating the rights and protections for women. Women stood united. They refused to be silenced and to suffer injustice. Instead, they became empowered. They decided to fight back against a powerful institution, and they have won. And now, I would like to introduce Jane Doe, 48, for her statement. Say hello, Jane Doe, 48. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. I'm going to read a statement that I wrote myself. I'm not an actor, so forgive my nervousness.
If you could speak up a little louder, that would be great. So go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I will. I am one of Dr. Tyndall's original victims and speak here as evidence that he developed and perfected his predatory MO early on in his tenure at USC, a pattern that he continued to employ to gain the trust of and harm young Trojan women over decades. It was 1989 when, at just 17 years old and trying to be a responsible grown-up, I went to the USC Student Health Center for my first well woman exam. Tyndall's grooming started immediately, with him noticing my nervousness and being overly reassuring and solicitous. He quickly gained enough of my trust to learn that I was on my own, poor, and very inexperienced. He told me not to worry, that he would take care of me. He talked, about all of the trouble a girl could get into in college and said I needed to tell him everything I was doing sexually so he could protect me. He claimed his violations during the exam, which included painful and prolonged probing, were his giving me better care. He gaslit me while he was doing this, saying, "It doesn't hurt, does it?" This was not a question, but a statement. It did hurt a lot. He said it was very important that I come for all of my appointments. There were a lot of appointments. He prescribed a very expensive type of birth control that I could not afford. I later found out that cheaper types with fewer side effects had been available. He then helped me by giving me samples, but held those medications hostage as he required me to come in at least twice a year for his very thorough exams. I don't recall if he photographed me. I always kept my eyes shut during these exams, trying to breathe and relax so it wouldn't hurt so much. He did show me printed photos of other women's vaginas to explain what STDs were so that I would be more careful about my sexual activities. He often implied that all college women are promiscuous, and that's why he had to take such good care of us. I started having mental health issues. I sought help and was told that I showed signs of sexual trauma. It was the early 90s and there was a lot of talk about repressed memories, so I spent a great deal of time and resources trying to figure out if I'd been raped as a child. This while Tyndall continued his abuse. I didn't recognize his abuse as a series of assaults because I literally didn't know what was supposed to happen in an examination. I thought that was just how reproductive healthcare worked. The nurses who were sometimes present for his exams literally looked the other way. Looking back, I can see the connection between Tyndall's violations and the anxiety and stress-related health issues, as well as difficulties with participating in medical care that have continued throughout my life. My education was also derailed for a time, which impacted my career trajectory. I'm proud that I learned to cope with these effects and managed to find my way personally and professionally despite these setbacks. In fact, I've gone beyond coping to helping others and have spent more than 20 years working with survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. I'm conscious of the layers of privilege I hold as a white, cisgender, straight, relatively affluent woman that have led to me being able to sit here today, share my story, and see some measure of justice served. I'm acutely aware of how many other children, women, and trans people have suffered similar trauma, never being heard, let alone having their perpetrators of their abuse held to account. Over those years of professional and personal experience, I have seen and heard firsthand how unsafe obstetrics and gynecology services can be. The reality is that any role that confers outsized power to an individual poses the risk of attracting people who will abuse that power. In any profession where power dynamics are as inherently skewed as they are in medicine, safeguards must be in place, complainants must be believed, and any abuses of power must be addressed immediately. This settlement shows institutions everywhere that there is a great price to pay if they choose to ignore abusive doctors. It's past time to bring patient voices fully into the design and oversight of reproductive health care, and it's my personal hope that this settlement will provide the motivation needed to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jane Doe 48. And next we are going to say hello to Daniela Mohazab. Unmute yourself if you would, please, Daniela. And thank you very much for being with us today. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you, Jane Doe 48. So I want universities and institutions to take a careful look at this. I hope it shocks you. I hope it scares you. I hope it drives you to make sure change happens and policies are followed. This happened because of a doctor who sexually abused us and a university who overlooked it for decades. University and institution leaders, I urge you to pay close attention to the policies that you have. Make sure to look at patient complaints and to take any sort of sexual abuse allegations as seriously as possible. Make sure the one making the claim is okay. Make sure that this doesn't happen again. Don't try and push it under the rug. Avoiding problems doesn't fix problems. I hope our fighting inspires leaders to pay attention and protect its members and students and faculty. To the women that were abused by Tyndall, whether you took legal action or not, and whether you have told anyone about it or not, you are not alone. Our abuse has been recognized at a higher level. We are seen. We've been heard. Now we can continue to heal. Focus on ourselves. Institutional change has been made. Now let's push forward towards personal growth and healing. Let's move on from Dr. Tyndall. Let's be proud of what we've done, how we fought. We've inspired leaders at other institutions to keep close eyes on their policies and students so that other women don't have to go through what we did. We fought really hard for this in the past 2 years. Thank you to Gloria and her partners for believing in us in 2018 and for taking on this case. Together, we have made a change. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce Jane Doe, number 3.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Daniela, and thank you, Gloria and Jane Doe 48. I will now tell my written story here that I saw Dr. Tyndall in the 90s for my first gynecological visit. Seeing him was a disgusting experience. He made crude comments, asked prurient questions, had me undress with him in the room, and took photos of me for so-called research purposes. Most disturbing to me, while I had requested a woman be present during the exam, he sent the female nurse away while he performed a prolonged, ungloved pelvic exam on me with unwashed hands. I still remember his shiny and reddened face hovering over me as I lay on the exam table. There were additional violations that I do not wish to outline at this time. I felt so violated after seeing him, I didn't go back to a gynecologist for 5 years afterwards. However, I didn't suspect that he was a sexual predator and did not report him to USC. Instead, I assumed that something I said or did had invited him to act inappropriately. In other words, I blamed myself. When I learned in May 2018 that Tyndall was a sexual predator who had gone on to abuse more than a generation of women after me, I was shocked and horrified. USC knew about this predator and had not stopped him from abusing women. I am relieved that today USC has been held accountable. With this landmark settlement, at long last, justice is being served. Although I do not wish to be here today recounting this painful and traumatic experience, I am here because I hope this will be a turning point in the way universities and college campuses treat sexual abuse. The Me Too movement has shown that real change happens when survivors speak out about abuse. I stand here today with the other victims of Dr. Tyndall. The damage he caused is incalculable. It is my hope that this settlement and the upcoming criminal proceedings deliver justice and put an end to this nightmare for so many women.
Thank you very much, Jane Doe. And now, Katherine, who is one of our clients and a survivor. Hi, Katherine.
Hi there. Thanks to all of you for being here, and thank you for sharing.
Please speak up. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead. Thank you.
I was 19 years old when I moved from abroad to Los Angeles. I felt very lucky to have spent my freshman year of college exploring the world, other cultures, living amongst people with all sorts of different identities. These were things that nourished my soul. So it was with hesitation that I moved back to the US and to Los Angeles. However, the great Southern Cal weather, architecture school, and new uplifting community were worth it, I thought. Plus, USC, I was told, everyone told me, was a great university. I was poor financially. I know a lot of people think, what, you went to USC, how can you be poor? Let me just tell you, I had a partial academic scholarship and I'm still paying off undergrad loans. But back to my story. I was on my own, far from my family. I trusted USC as an institution like a family member. In all regards, safety while on campus, quality professors, good curriculum, all the basic things young people expect when they attend a university of USC's supposed caliber. So when I went to my first gynecological exam that fall, I also thought I could trust the doctor providing medical services. I mean, who would doubt that one couldn't trust a medical professional, right? And one working as the only full-time gynecologist at a major university at that. Who would ever think that a doctor would abandon the main guiding principle of any healthcare provider? That of primum non nocere, or first do no harm. I've since learned that this guiding principle is broken every day in so many ways across so many circumstances. And I find it ironic that doctors are having their licenses revoked simply for opting to use natural medicine instead of patented chemicals, or helping people achieve better health, or just by comparing unvaccinated to vaccinated children who are all their own patients. It's pretty ironic when a doctor who is allowed knowingly to continue to give students gynecological exams after he's been accused by multiple women of sexual assault or misconduct for decades. While I don't feel there's a way to really put monetary value on the pain and suffering endured from being physically abused, then silently and even subconsciously living out the consequences of the abuse for over 20 years, this day is a starting place for me and somewhat of a central node, hopefully for all of us here, and all of the women who are affected, from which healing can occur. And hopefully it's enough of a consequence for an institution like USC to prevent them or any entity from tolerating violence towards women under their roof. Growing the awareness of these types of atrocities is a large part of healing and of cultural change, not only for me personally, but also for our society as a whole. This is not the only large sexual abuse case of this type to go through the court system in the last few years. And while the ability to finally hold aggressors accountable is welcome, this all reflects a deep sickness in our society that we all have to live with, whether we ourselves experience sexual abuse or it's our mothers, sisters, daughters, wives, friends, or neighbors. I would really like to focus in this moment on growing our awareness, everyone out there listening, so that we do not become aggressors or perpetrators, nor victims of such, so that we all live more peacefully together with all life on this planet. As the most evolved species, we tell ourselves we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katherine. And now I'd like to introduce our outstanding, exceptional co-counsel, John Carpenter. John?
Thank you, Gloria, and thank you for your bravery to come here today and share your story. This has been a journey like none other in my career. Traveling to Sacramento to change the statute of limitations. This has been the battle and the triumph of my career. I'm so proud of you for standing up and having the bravery to speak out and stick with us. It's so important. But I would like to state and make clear that USC is not paying $1.1 billion because of the conduct of Dr. Tyndall. USC is paying $1.1 billion for their conduct, for what they did. The law in California generally protects themselves against the actions of reckless, unexpected crimes. It's only because USC knew that this was going on. They knew he was taking photographs. They saw Dr. Tyndall destroy the film and destroy the evidence of the photographs he was taking. They knew that he was shielding chaperones from viewing what he was doing. They ignored written complaints regarding ungloved examinations. That is why USC is paying this. And when we go to airports, you see the signs. When you see something, you say something. That applies to sexual abuse too. When you see something, you say something. And when you hear something, you believe it. We have 1.1 billion reasons why you should believe the women now and forevermore. I'd also like to thank the LA Times. Without the LA Times, all these women would have gone without any justice at all. And in this litigation, we asked USC, why was it that the LA Times did a better job investigating than the USC did? They never answered that question. I'm just so proud and thankful for everyone involved. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, John. We're going to take questions now, but John, if you don't mind, let's start with a question that I know is being asked. The first question is, other lawyers are giving a higher figure of 852 million settlement. What is the reason for the difference in the figure that I cited and that they are citing? I know, but please provide the answer and the breakdown.
Yeah, it's this settlement was 710 plaintiffs for 1.2 million each for 852 million. The 1.2 billion number is the culmination of all the settlements for including the class action.
I think that the question also has to do with, I said it was 842,400,000. There are little differences, and there was a separate settlement with others in addition to the 702. So could you just clarify that there was another attorney? I think that's what the confusion
Sure,
is.
yes. Yeah.
And then there's the third group or basket. of the class action. So let's just break it down a little more clearly for the members of the press who are here.
Sure.
We have 842,400,000 for the 702 victims,
That's correct.
of which we represent 72. Then there's an additional amount, aside from the class action, for the other attorney who represented a certain number. Would you like to share what that is?
I don't have that number at my fingertips. I'm sorry, Gloria.
All right, well, we can come back to that. And then there is the class action that was settled 2 years ago. So some people may be adding that in. If you have a question, please hit the Q&A button and just type it in. Okay. Another person is asking if any of you speak Spanish and can give some comments in Spanish for their news story about how this has affected your adult life. Will this settlement be the first step towards your healing? It's a question from Telemundo. Are you able to speak Spanish, Jane Doe 48? If you can, unmute yourself, please. But rather than reading a whole statement, if you could answer their question, we would appreciate it.
Okay, I can. Just give me a few minutes to kind of formulate it, if that's
No
okay.
problem. We can come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see if there are any other questions for the chat. Okay. All right. The next question is, are any of the survivors planning to testify in the criminal case? And if so, how do you feel about confronting him in court? I will just say that I do not want them to answer that question for the following reason. Some of our clients will be testifying in the criminal case. I'm not going to say whether any of them are on this Zoom today or not. But some of our 72 clients will be testifying in a criminal case. And some of them are victims for whom charges were filed against Dr. Tyndall in that criminal case. For that reason, I would not want them to ask how they would feel when they confront Dr. Tyndall in court at trial in that criminal case. But if they would like to talk about that after the trial, then they can do so. Right now, I don't want to identify who's going to be a victim or have them speak to that. Okay, another question is that a common theme of the case was that Dr. Tyndall targeted many Asian women. What does the timing of the settlement mean, given the Atlanta shooting and the other anti-Asian crimes that we have seen happening? I don't know if any of our clients want to answer that, but I will just say the timing of the approval by the court this afternoon of the settlement is not at all related to this tragedy in Atlanta, where so many of the Asian women, may they rest in peace, were murdered. It's not related to that at all. However, we do have among our 72 clients a number of women who are American of Asian descent or Asian, and many of whom don't want to be identified. And I know that all of us, whether we are, American of Asian descent, Eurasian, whatever, our hearts go out to those families of the victims in that Atlanta tragedy shooting. And at least this settlement is a bright spot in an otherwise, very dark week for the community, Asian community. Jane Doe 48, are you ready with anything in Spanish, even if it's brief?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Sí, este abuso ha tenido muchos efectos a mí. Paré y luego cambié de escuela. Durante toda mi vida adulta he luchado contra la ansiedad y por recibir atención médica. Y sí, ha habido muchos efectos.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? And if not, we will conclude. Okay, I guess that's it. We thank everybody for joining us today. And if you have any other questions or would like to interview anyone on this Zoom, feel free to email me, and then I will ask our clients if they would like to do any further interviews or not. Thank you again. And now we're going to celebrate. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
We will send everybody who RSVP a copy of the statements that were made today. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.